This is a Fox News alert. The FAA airspace restrictions over northern Michigan have now been lifted. This as 3 flying objects have now been shot down by U.S. military forces over North America. Here's a look at those locations of those objects. Last Saturday, a Chinese spy craft was shot down off the coast of South Carolina, and officials are now working to recover its remnants in the Atlantic Ocean. On Friday, another object was shot down and landed off the coast of Alaska. And just yesterday, a third object flying over Canada was shot down, all by American F-22 fighter jets. There was also something spotted on radar over Montana on Saturday, but it was determined to be not another flying object. Congressman Jim Himes addressed it all on on NBC this morning.
I have real concerns about why the administration is not being more forthcoming with everything that it knows. But part of the problem here is that both of the second and the third objects were shot down in very remote areas. So my guess is that there's just not a lot of information out there yet to share.
Congressman Himes, the ranking member on the intelligence panel, expressing his concerns over the Biden administration's response to the string of unidentified aerial objects. For more on this, let's bring in our political panel today. Terry Holt, a former Boehner aide and former George W. Bush spokesperson and Mercury Public Affairs managing director, and Kevin Walling, a Democratic strategist and former Biden surrogate. Gentlemen, welcome. Okay, so you heard from Jim Himes, a serious national security Democrat, expressing concerns about wanting more information. Bipartisan concerns at this point, Kevin.
I think that's always Congress's line with anything, regardless of the administration, is they want more information. They want more briefings from the military. They want more briefings from the president and the administration. And certainly there are more questions than answers at this point. But Terry and I were actually talking about this earlier. This should be a bipartisan issue, and I'm hopeful that it will continue to be. This is an American issue and a national security issue. It's important that Congress now has this China committee. You have very serious Democrats and Republicans on that committee that will be looking at these issues, because any violation of our airspace, and we're learning more that there were these kind of incursions during the Trump administration and even maybe previous to the Trump administration. So certainly we're learning more as the process goes along, but Congress certainly has a role in figuring out and getting to the bottom of some of these answers.
Terry, we've seen a tactical change. The first one flew across the country off the coast of South Carolina, and then some quick shoot downs over the course of this weekend. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I just worry that it may be political, that we weren't worried about this incursion last week, but now we are, because the bright light of the media and of the public of attention. But I think it's really serious to point out that we don't yet know what the national security implications are. None of this stuff has been recovered yet. The Biden administration hasn't been particularly forthcoming on what they know about the source of these balloons. So, frankly, right now, both Democrats and Republicans should be in a state of frustration and concern that we don't yet know more than we do at this point.
If all signs go back to China, if when they get to the wreckage of all this stuff and they find out it's Chinese, what's the change in approach that comes from that, do you think?
Well, certainly this is a stepped-up attack when it comes to our airspace, right, and any violation of that. Now, we spy on the Chinese every day. The Chinese spy on us. They have high-definition satellites, just like we do. But this is a new phenomenon involving airspace, involving safety, as those last 2 aircraft were at the same height that some of our commercial aircraft fly at, posing a potential danger to Americans. Same with taking that first object out of the skies over water so that we, to Terry's point, could recover a lot of those materials. So certainly there should be more, whether it be sanctions, and you mentioned some of the sanctions on some of these Chinese companies that the administration has gone forward, but there should be a proportional response, certainly to any kind of violation of our sovereign airspace.
It seems to me, going back to President Obama, we've been talking about pivoting to Asia. If it's all Chinese stuff, do we pivot to Asia finally?
Well, I think we have been pivoting to Asia, frankly. The Trump administration had a strong policy toward China. This administration has taken up that cause. In fact, in some ways is tougher on China. I think there's a great bipartisan opportunity for us to send a united front to the Chinese, that we're not messing around, that we will protect our airspace, and that we're going to come after you if you come after us. That this is a stage now where the United States has declared that their airspace is sovereign, and there should be a policy that is articulated from the Biden administration that reflects that.
There's a tendency by the national security complex here in Washington to make things classified so lawmakers can't come out and say anything. Is there pressure now to have unclassified briefings to tell the American people what the heck's going on, Kevin?
I certainly think there is pressure. Members of Congress were briefed on Thursday, I believe, of the first incursion with that Chinese balloon. There should be more briefings. They should be more forthcoming to the extent that they can. It's a delicate dance, we know, with China. There's ramifications, geopolitical, with any of that information that we release. But certainly there is a hunger and part of, again, Congress's role in terms of oversight in these briefings are so critical.
Is that a way to calm down Congress if you do some unclassified briefings where they can talk about it?
Well, they better talk about it. This is in the public eye now. This is not a conversation between just the Republican and Democratic leaders and then intelligence and military here in the United States. This is how it all begins in the movies. Most people are sitting around wondering what the heck is going on above their head. So I think it's time for the politicians to tell the American people what's going on and how are we going to deal with it.
The F-22 fighter jet has gotten good publicity for being able to take
all
these
three
things
strikes
down.
taken out. Yeah.
But is that the correct approach? Should we need a real policy to deal with this?
And do we need to update radar and stuff like that to make sure we're really, catching these things as early as possible?
Well, it's certainly the case. I think we're learning more about how we intercept and detect these. They've opened up so-called filters where we're detecting a lot more. And you recently, obviously, in the last couple of minutes, talked about that Michigan airspace potential issue, Montana potential airspace issue. So I think we're learning a lot more just in terms of how we go about finding these objects in the skies.
And it's not just the spying aspect of it. There's also concern about airspace. We've got a lot of planes up in the air, too, right?
There's a lot of airplanes. There's a lot of stuff flying around every day of the year. Now we have drones. The people have drones that they use, and they get up pretty high, too. So there's a lot of concern out there, I think, by the general public, what's over their head, and frankly, is it coming to get them? And I think the public needs to have better understanding. And we'll know more as these recovery efforts continue, as the Biden administration hopefully starts out this week by being really open about what they know about this. I think that we're going to find out that this is part of our new normal again. This is where we are.
All right, Terry Holt, Kevin Walling, thank you, gentlemen.
Happy Super Bowl Sunday, Mike.
Enjoy the game. It's on Fox, right?